I asked you here to talk about your work in the NICU with families, breastfeeding families, because it's really, really important work, and I don't think most people plan to spend time in the NICU with their babies. But when it happens, it might be good to know what it's sort of like. And so I'm writing this article about it, and I thought I would talk to you because you have a lot of experience. So will you just kind of introduce yourself, tell us what kind of experience and where you work, what you do?
I sure will. So my name is Belinda. I have been a lactation consultant for 20 years this year. I have 7 children. They were all breastfed, including number 6 and 7, who just happen to be twins. And I work here. I work here. I'm at work now. I work at Ascension Seton Medical Center in the NICU. We're a level 3 NICU, and I love this place. And it's an amazing. I didn't know I was supposed to be here until I got here, and now I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for. That's about all there is to me.
You breastfed a lot of babies, and it was easy for you, and that, along with a coworker, convinced you to get into this work, right? And
yeah,
you
my
haven't looked
coworker.
back. Yeah, and you haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you were never going to work in a NICU, though, right?
Yeah.
So now that you do, like, what was it about being in there that made you love your work and made you want to stay there?
It's just the babies are just so amazing. And it is, and the staff here was wonderful. Everyone was very welcoming when I came in. I thought I was going to have to do a lot of, throwing away formula stuff here and there, and it was already gone. I didn't have to do any of that. The staff was like, no, we can't have that in here. So I didn't have to do any of that. And then watching these little babies go from these little tiny, 24 weekers to giant 6-pound babies is amazing. And they can go to the breast and they can breastfeed and they do all the things that, big babies are supposed to do. And it's amazing it's amazing. They go into this little box and then they come out and they're ready to breastfeed. It's crazy. Love it. Amazing.
Start out totally helpless, and then they're breastfeeding, and
yeah, their brains are just like, oh, I wish I could read their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you're a lactation consultant. You're an IBCLC. And so that's the work you do in the NICU, is you're working with families, talking to families about feeding their babies and how that gets done in a NICU, right? So what does a typical work day look like for you?
Oh, well, I come in the morning and I go to my census to see if we got any new babies while I was gone. I'm here 5 days a week, so, it's not that difficult for me to figure out if there's somebody new. And I will text the nurse on our cute little Volt phones, the mother's nurse, and find out if mom has started pumping yet. If not, please make sure that they've got supplies in the room and all. And then I will go bay to bay to make breastfeeding appointments with the families that are working on breastfeeding in the NICU. And we have an open bay concept. So we have 6 bays here where we may have 5 or 6 babies in each bay. But the new building is going to be separate rooms. So it'll look different when we move into the new building. It'll be more similar to what they have over at Dell.
So that's sort of a trend I've been hearing, right, with NICUs, is that instead of it being one big open concept room, each family has their own individual room.
Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about that, honestly, because I see these parents, supporting each other, and I just don't think that's going to happen as easily if they're all separated into rooms. but we'll see.
And with the private rooms, the goal is also that the parents can stay there with their babies around the clock too. So yeah, I guess you win some, you lose some.
I know. It's like, I don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel. I'm sure we can make it wonderful because the doctors are great. The staff is great. I mean, I'm sure that we will figure out a way to get over that hump.
Yeah. Maybe there'll be a little community area where parents can go to get their coffee and things like that, so they can hang out there.
I hope so. And I think that they're planning on that. So we'll see.
Okay. So when you go check on any new, you check, all the numbers, who's in the NICU today. And so you're looking for first, babies that were just born. And so in that case, their parents are still in the hospital and staying in the hospital, right? And so that's what you meant by going to check on those moms and seeing if they have everything they need to be pumping for their babies.
Right.
Since their babies are not with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so then you go make those appointments with the other families that are working on breastfeeding with you. And what does that look like? What is it that you talk to those families about, and what kinds of things do you specifically do with them?
With the new families that are just now starting to pump, I do all of the education there, why it's important to pump, why, how your body makes milk. This is going to be a long journey, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And then with our breastfeeding moms, oftentimes they think that baby's just going to jump on the breast and go to town, which is not what happens. So we discuss feeding cues. We look at, how important positioning is with these preterm babies, or even full-term babies who may have had a traumatic birth and have a big old, headache, and all of those things. So we talk about positioning and what to expect in the next, few days. We're not going to, a baby's not going to be born, go to the NICU, and then breastfeed 8 times in 24 hours. It's going to be born, go to the NICU, breastfeed once. Let's see how that goes. And the next day, maybe 2 times, and so on. So it takes time, it takes patience, and pumping is the most important part of all of that.
So a big part of your job is to talk to people about pumping schedules and how to use a pump and how to get a pump. You get pumps for them. The hospital provides really good quality, reliable pumps.
Yeah.
And so when they're in the hospital, they can do that, and then the nurse brings it to the NICU, or they come to the NICU if they can and bring it to their babies. And then how do the babies get that milk? So if the babies aren't quite ready to breastfeed directly, but their parents pumping milk for them, then how does the baby get that milk?
Yeah. So if baby is not able to breastfeed, or, orally feed, then we're going to use a gavage tube. And that is a flexible, tiny little tube that goes in baby's nose and down into baby's tummy. So the milk goes directly to the baby's stomach. It is a really great way to feed your baby, even though it looks a little scary because your baby's got a tube in their nose. It will help the baby conserve energy that the baby needs to grow, and we can put baby at the breast and with absolutely no pressure at all, because baby's going to get his feed and they can just lick and love and be at the breast. And it's just, it's a wonderful first feed experience because there's no stress. We like to stress the no stress.
Yeah. So they're at the breast and they're getting good skin to skin time and they're nuzzling, while they're also getting food through their tube.
Yeah.
And so they're associating a full belly
Mhm.
with being at the breast. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like the first step, right? So that's
Right.
some practice, right? It's a little
Oh
bit of
yeah.
a
And practice is super important. And I mean, there's going to be so much practice. It's going to be, by the time parents leave here, they know so much. They could open their own, come on, NICU babies, I'll show you what to do.
Okay. And you were telling me that a lot of your job, it's education. It's also some of the technical stuff. But a lot of it is just being there with families, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
It, it feels like, I am the person that they can talk to. They feel comfortable talking to me. And I don't know if maybe it's because when you're helping someone pump, there's like nothing between you. And, parents just tend to really are able to open up to me, not necessarily just to me, but I feel like to lactation consultants, because we are, able to establish a relationship with the families. And again, I don't know if that's because, we're pumping, they're vulnerable, we're vulnerable. I tell people, this is, um, I am open with them as well. And they, open up to me. So it's a good thing. I mean, I've got friends from, let's see, my twins, their mother is my friend, and she would come back to visit us until she moved away just recently, but they just turned 14. And they would come up to visit here at the hospital too, to see the doctors and the staff and everybody. It's like something that it's hard to explain.
You become a little bit of a family.
Yeah, it was a
Mhm.
family, very much so.
Yeah. I imagine it's very hard to be in the NICU when that wasn't your plan and you're worried about your baby and you're recovering from birth. So all of that. And then you're in this very medical situation. But then someone like you comes in and, like you said, you bring your stool with you.
Yeah,
And so you're sitting down at eye level. You're not standing over their bed,
right.
looking down at them. So you're, eye to eye, and you're talking to them about how to take care of their baby. So I imagine there could be a lot of ways to connect there. So
Yeah.
we hear all the time from patients that they got a lot out of their time with you. So it's definitely working what you're doing. It's
Oh,
very
good.
meaningful.
That makes me feel great. I do love to hear that.
Yeah. We get great surveys all the time. So they're in the NICU, and sometimes it is for really serious and life-threatening things, but sometimes it's not, right? So what are the more typical things that you see babies come to the NICU for?
Well, we do have a lot of, not necessarily a lot of, our fair share of very small babies, but we also get like babies who are having trouble with their blood sugars, having trouble regulating their temperature, having trouble with the high bilirubin, and it makes them really sleepy. So those babies come to us as well, hopefully for a much shorter stay than the itty bitties. But and those, I think, are probably the most difficult stays, really, because if you have a 25 weeker, you know that you can't take that baby home with you because the baby needs to be in the hospital and needs all this extra care. But if you have a 38, 40 weeker who's supposed to be going home with you, and then all of a sudden we take the baby to the NICU, and that, I feel like those are the parents who are most distraught, and those are really the parents who need the most love, because they just got pulled into this crazy story that's going to be fine at the end, but walking through that tunnel's got to be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though their babies are not, their lives are not at risk, it's shocking, right? It's very unexpected and takes some time. Yeah. Okay. So why is it that a NICU needs you? Why is breastfeeding such a huge piece, getting the breast milk, such a huge piece of a baby's NICU stay? Why for these babies in particular is breast milk important?
Yeah. Well, mom's milk is like medicine for these babies. Every mother, her milk is specific for her baby. So while donor milk is wonderful and amazing, and we are very blessed to have it, mother's milk can't compare to mother's milk. So we really try and get our moms pumping early and frequent, and help them collect, even drops of colostrum. We'll pull it up onto a sponge and use it for oral care for the baby, because it's so important. And I mean, breast milk is just the most amazing thing ever, and can really help protect these babies against, against scary stuff. So oftentimes, when you're premature and your gut is also premature, then feeding issues can happen, and breast milk can really help that gut, help protect that gut. So it's very important.
Yeah. So the babies that are most fragile in the NICU, they're more susceptible to things like infections and all that, right? And I know that breast milk can help them fight off those infections. It just helps outcomes in general. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's why the milk banks that are collecting donor milk, the number one priority for that milk is NICUs. So that's where it goes to first, right? They stock the NICUs first. And then if there's any left, it's for other babies, other families. But for those babies that are most fragile in the NICU, it can mean the difference between, recovering and not recovering from something. So,
right.
And like you said, the donor milk is amazing, because sometimes, people don't have the milk themselves. And so luckily that donor milk is there. That's medicine. And that's kind of first line medicine, right? In the NICU.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing stuff. So it's hard to imagine sometimes these very tiny babies, when you've seen them, they're premature, they're small. Can they, most people think, that they can't feed directly from the breast. Right. Is that always true?
Yeah, it's almost never true. But it doesn't look the same as, breastfeeding your full-term baby on day one, 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. It looks more like, breastfeeding one time the first time you try it, and then maybe 2 times the next day. And on top of that, parents need to continue pumping to protect that milk supply. So it's a bigger job, and it can take a longer time to establish exclusive breast milk or breastfeeding directly from mom's breast. Most of the time, babies are at home before they actually are able to exclusively breastfeed without any supplementation with a bottle or anything, or any other way. But we can get them about halfway there.
And is that because it's just harder? They get tired, or?
Yeah, it's a lot of different reasons. Yeah, they, a 34, 35 weeker, or let's just take a late preterm baby, a 37 weeker or 36 weeker is not really supposed to be breastfeeding until they're 40 to 42 weeks gestation, so it's like this baby, this 36 weeker, doesn't have the energy to go to the breast and exclusively breastfeed, because that's extra work that the baby's having to do that the baby typically shouldn't be having to do.
Right.
Does that make sense? That's kind of a
because they wouldn't be born yet. They haven't.
They would have a free umbilical cord. They're getting free gas. When they come early, they don't have that. So then they've got to work at all of these things. So breathing is burning calories, staying warm is burning calories. Everything they do is burning calories. So we need to minimize that loss so that they can gain and get stronger. So it
Okay.
takes time, but it does happen.
Yeah. But they're getting plenty of practice. They're getting practice. Even if they're not
Yeah.
getting all their milk from the breast directly, they're practicing, and they can get there, and they can go home and get there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why you're there. You're there to help families get there.
Well, that's why we have our outpatient too, because then they can go. It's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You were telling me when we started this that you had just left a family that was really exciting. Will you mention that?
My little 26 weekers. They were born at 26 weeks. They are like 35 weeks now, and they're twins, and we just tandem fed them for the first time. So both babies, one on one breast, one on the other. And it was the sweetest thing ever, because like one of the babies kept side-eyeing the other guy, like, what are you doing? And then the other little guy was like, hey, who are you? It was so cute. It was amazing. I love this job. It's the best.
So you've been knowing them for 9 weeks. And so when they first came in, they were very helpless and gavage feeding, and you were helping their mom with pumping, and that's even harder with twins, right? You have to do even more.
Yeah. You need to pump a little bit longer, and it's pretty important. And she's keeping up with them. I'm impressed. I mean, it's difficult. I breastfed my twins, but they were number 6 and 7. My body already knew how to make milk. This is her first pregnancy. So to me, it's just like NICU babies are amazing. NICU moms are even more amazing, I think. They are the strongest people on the earth. They should all have a Wonder Woman or t-shirts.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make those.
Yeah.
Every NICU mom. Yeah. Because they're amazing.
It's a hard start. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
It's giving birth is hard for everyone, recovering from that, but then having a baby in the NICU is another level. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So when someone's got a baby in the NICU, and so let's say the parent is still in the hospital, still recovering from birth, or maybe they've gone home already. Like, what is a standard sort of schedule as far as like the pumping and trying to get that milk supply in?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be important for moms to pump at least 8 times in 24 hours to establish that milk supply. It's very important that they pump at least 1 time at night, preferably toward that early morning time. I think that's the hardest part for people to understand, because they keep hearing from other people, like their mothers, whatever. You need to sleep at night because the baby's not here, so you can sleep all night and then you can get up and start pumping. And so that's probably one of the hardest things. I've seen it happen. I've seen parents establish a fabulous milk supply without pumping at night, but I've seen it happen one time in 17 years in the NICU. So
okay. Yeah. So you're trying to mimic what a baby would be doing if the baby was with you nursing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have pumps available for moms to pump at the bedside, so they can pump up here. We've got curtains, so it's not like everybody's watching you. They can bring their own pump. We've got a couple of pump rooms. We got pumps all over the place. If you need to pump, this is the place to be.
Okay. And so you mentioned getting the babies to feed directly from the breast, whether that's a little bit or a lot, and then gavage feeding, so the little nasal tube. Are there any other ways that babies get the milk if they're not doing either of those things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we teach parents how to safely bottle feed their babies. We use very slow flow nipples, and we bottle feed in a sideline position. And sorry, I don't have a baby to show you, but the milk is not just flowing down the baby's throat. We're helping the baby control how much milk they're getting, and that's very important. And positioning is important too, as well. So it all kind of goes together. And when you see the beautiful picture at the end, you're like, I got it. Okay, now I understand.
Okay.
But we can't have babies all
Yeah.
balled up, curled up in a ball, and which is exactly what they do as soon as they get close to mom. So, it takes a little bit of patience and teaching and
Yeah.
getting people comfortable.
So it's kind of an intermediate stage. They don't need the gavage tube anymore, but they're maybe not 100% at the breast yet.
Right.
So this bottle feeding is kind of an intermediate step.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just the last question I have is how about from the perspective of the parent? So parents in the NICU, what does a typical day look like for them?
Some parents like to come and spend the entire day, which is totally fine. They'll have somebody drop them off in the morning and then just pick them up in the evening, and they'll spend the whole day here, bring their lunch, whatever. They can't eat in the unit, but we have places where they can eat on the 8th floor. And they can pump at the bedside. They'll bring books. Some of them will be back there quietly listening to music or watching TV on their phones or whatever, just to spend time with their babies. And we want them to do as much skin to skin as possible, because skin to skin is just so amazing. And it helps everybody calm. It's like it calms the baby, it calms the mom, it calms the staff who's putting them skin to skin. It just calms everybody. So parents can be here anytime, day or night.
Yeah, that's encouraged.
Yeah. Visitors are a different story. We won't worry about that though.
Okay.
Parents are always able to be here.
Yeah. And so while the parents are here, whether they're here, around the clock or, for certain windows of time, what else might be available to them? You mentioned an organization. Well, you've already said other parents. And then of course the staff, you and the nurses are great comfort and support, but additionally.
Yeah. So Hand to Hold is a nonprofit organization started by a former NICU mom who was just appalled at the lack of support that NICU moms got or NICU parents got. And so she started Hand to Hold, and they employ former NICU moms to come, or former NICU families. We also have dads, to come and support our current NICU families. So it's, I cannot say to someone, I have walked in your shoes, but they really can say, I've been there and this is what helped me. So they're wonderful, wonderful support system for them. And they, there's somebody here, I think 4 days a week or so, and they bring lunch one day. And so they all sit and chat. And, if somebody's got a breastfeeding question, then they'll yell at me, hey, Belinda, can you come talk to this mom? So we definitely work together. And they're just a wonderful support. I love those girls. They're good. They're good people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that might look different in different hospitals, but a lot of times hospitals do have some kind of maybe peer-led support group for NICU families. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a podcast that I want to just add, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I should have looked that up. The NICU Dad. You can look him up. Hand to Hold, the NICU Dad. He's a lovely guy.
Okay. That's a podcast, and it's a former NICU family from your hospital where you work, and now they have a podcast and they visit sometimes. And okay.
Yeah, they usually come by at least once a year, and dads often get forgotten, and you can probably go back and count how many times I said mom. Oh, I mean families, because poor dad, and they typically we're not focusing on them. And they typically will begin to stress about 6 months after baby. So it's wonderful to have somebody to, another man that they can talk to. And our NICU dad is just fabulous. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the whole family, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there
it
can be
is.
more stress and pressure.
Yeah.
Mom just having the birth parent because of birth and because of
Right.
breastfeeding. So, but yeah, definitely something that it's the
Yeah.
whole family. Okay. Well, thank you, Belinda, for teaching me something about the NICU, teaching me a lot about the NICU, and hopefully anybody who's watching this. And thank you for doing the work you do, because it makes a big, big difference.
And it truly is my pleasure. So